Ivan Sidorenko. Imagine a man, silent, patient, cold-blooded. You cannot see him, but he has already seen you. Every enemy that passed through his rifle scope faced death within seconds. He was one of World War II's most deadly snipers. His name, Ivan Mikhailovich Sidorenko, and this is his story. Ivan was born on the 12th of September 1919 in the village of Chansovo in Russia's Smolensk region. He was a child of a poor peasant family. His childhood was spent in poverty, field work, and harsh village life. But Ivan was not an ordinary village child. He had a hidden talent within him, drawing. His interest in art took him all the way to Penza Art College. In those years, his only dream was to become a painter or sculptor. If life had gone its own way, perhaps today we would be discussing his paintings. But when the war bells began to toll in 1939, Ivan's destiny would be a rifle, not a brush. Ivan left art school and joined the Red Army. He was sent to the Simferopol military infantry school in Crimea for training. Here he became acquainted with disciplined military life. Tough marches, heavy weapon training, military order. Ivan quickly attracted attention with his cool-headed nature. In 1941, when Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union, young Lieutenant Sidorenko was sent to the front. During the Battle of Moscow, he served in a mortar battery. But even during the bloodiest days of war, he began to do something different. He was not content with being just an ordinary artillery officer. On his own initiative, he took a rifle and began hunting the enemy. Ivan was patient. He could wait motionlessly for hours, not missing even the slightest movement. When he pulled the trigger, his bullet never missed its target. These shots, which he initially made secretly, soon caught the attention of his superiors. They realized that he was not just someone who killed the enemy, but also someone who made a tactical difference. Ivan was no longer just a soldier, he was a sniper, and this path will make him one of history's most deadly names. Soon he received a new assignment from his superiors to become a sniper instructor. Ivan would select talented soldiers, teaching them patience, proper positioning, and how to use the environment. Patience is the sniper's greatest weapon, he would say. Hundreds of soldiers trained under him would practice test shots with him at the front, receiving training in the midst of real war. Ivan wasn't just killing, he was also teaching how to kill. The students he trained began to spread across the fronts like a silent army of death. Ivan's name began to circulate in whispers among German soldiers. No one saw him, but suddenly his bullet would come and soldiers would silently collapse to the ground. He was like a ghost wandering in forests and ruins. According to official records, he killed more than 500 enemy soldiers during the war. But this wasn't just about numbers. Every bullet he fired silenced a machine gun nest, killed a commander, stopped a tank. He had become an invisible force that made a difference in the course of war. Ivan didn't just make individual shots, he paralyzed the enemy's logistics by destroying a tank and 3 tractors with incendiary rounds. In many operations, with his sniper rifle, he stopped the advance of entire units. His very presence gave morale to Soviet soldiers and fear to the enemy. Ivan Sidorenko was no longer just a man on the front, but a legend. On the 4th of June 1944, he received the title Hero of the Soviet Union, the highest honor of the Soviet Union. He was awarded the Order of Lenin. However, he was severely wounded during that period. He was no longer allowed to return to the front. For Ivan, the war was over, but the snipers he had trained continued to fight along the front. Sidorenko continued the war not only with his own bullets, but with his teachings. When the war ended, Ivan left the army with the rank of major. He chose a quiet, simple life. He began working as a foreman in a coal mine in the Chelyabinsk region in the Ural Mountains. This man, who had once been an invisible angel of death on the front, now lived a simple life among ordinary workers. In 1974, he moved to Dagestan, continuing his life in Kislyar. The man who loved silence continued to live in silence. On the 19th of February 1994, Ivan Sidorenko quietly passed away. He left behind the story of a poor village child, an art student, a war hero, and one of history's most deadly snipers. His story reminds us of a truth. Sometimes the quietest people carry the most deadly storms within them. Even Sidorenko went down in history as war's invisible shadow, the silent master of death. This is the story of the Charlie Brown and Franz Stigler incident. On the 20th of December 1943, an American B-17 bomber by the name of WWII flies 20,000 feet above the North Sea. It forms part of an 8-mile-long bomber stream making its way to northern Germany. Their target? A Focke-Wulf aircraft factory in the city of Bremen. Piloting a flying fortress, as the B-17 seconds are known, for the first time is Charlie Brown, who has the lives of 10 young men of the 379th Bombardment Group in his hands. They ready their 12 500-pound bombs. Shortly after 11 a.m., they nervously cross the German border, on the lookout for enemy fighters, because if they can see Germany, then Germany can see them and may calculate their height, speed, and intended destination. Covering them are their escorts, P-47 Thunderbolts, who, if needed, will intercept the enemy. At 11:30, puffs of black smoke appear. German 88mm flak cannons are opening fire, sending 20-pound shells into the air. Each has a differently timed fuse, so they explode at different altitudes. The explosions rock the pub, and Charlie can barely see through the smoke. Suddenly, a red flash explodes right before his eyes. The plexiglass nose of the plane is sheared off and smashes against the windshield. The men up front are unhurt, but ice-cold winds now stream through the plane. The outside air temperature is -60 Celsius. The shelling continues. Another red flash, and engine number 2 is dead. Another shell goes straight through the left wing before exploding further above. And on the right, engine number 4 is damaged and spins wildly out of control. Charlie fights the controls to keep the wing from ripping off, but yet another shell rips through the roof. His main focus is to keep the plane straight, as the command to drop the bombs comes through the radio. WWII gives a big kick as the heavy cargo falls on the smoking city down below. It's time to head home. The bomber formation makes its way back towards the North Sea, but the danger hasn't passed. They are still over enemy territory. Charlie's crew frantically scans the sky for enemy fighters, but the sky is empty. No fellow bombers have made the run unscathed, and WWII and the bomber beside them are seriously damaged. The pub itself stays up, but is reduced to 2 functional engines, and both planes have fallen way behind, as their formation has flown on ahead. The other plane dives to try and put out its fire. It disappears behind some clouds, and suddenly a red flash catches Charlie's eyes. The other plane is gone. His co-pilot cries out. Dark gray shapes appear on the horizon. It's a squadron of Focke-Wulf 192nd, closing fast. At the same time, a group of Messerschmitt 109nd leaps through the clouds below where the other B-17 has just disappeared. Charlie's men ready their machine guns as the 2 lead 192nd aim for the pub's cockpit to take out the pilot and the controls in one attack. Charlie turns and flies full speed towards the attackers, only presenting them the narrowest target while also shortening the distance between them. That catches the attackers off guard, and their bullets miss the cockpit and bounce off the plane's roof. Charlie's top gunner returns fire and hits a 190. It banks off on fire. The second 190 is hit by the nose gunner while trying to avoid collision. The flying fortress still has some fight in it. Now the 109nd close from behind. The tail gunner tries to spin his guns and nothing happens. The winds blowing through the plane have now frozen the oiled gun. The attackers close in. The tail gunner signals Charlie and he jerks the plane into a steep bank. Bullets ricochet off the frame, penetrating the glass of the ball turret beneath the plane and cutting off half the rudder. The radio operator calls for help, but gets only static. Bullets have pierced the radio. 20mm shells have punched through the plane and severely wounded many crew members. The tail gunner is now dead, and all of them are affected by the frost. Charlie fights just to keep the ruin of his plane in the air. Only one gun is still operable. Another attack and the cockpit is hit, puncturing Charlie's oxygen tank. Tipping to the left, the bomber spirals out of control. Gasping for air, Charlie tries to get control, but the loss of the rudder makes that virtually impossible. Upside down, Charlie's vision fades. As the bomber plunges toward the city of Oldenburg, Charlie comes to. The lower altitude has more oxygen. He immediately hauls on the controls, fighting the plane with all his strength. At just 3,000 feet, he pulls it out of its dive right above the houses of Oldenburg. The plane is close enough to shear shingles off the roofs. Charlie manages to pull the plane back up, at least what's left of it. Most of the crew is wounded or unconscious. Desperate times. Only able to fly at 135 miles per hour to escape back to England, they will have to break through the German lines again. The dreaded Atlantic Wall, Germany's fortified coastline with the best anti-aircraft gunners in the world. Charlie makes clear that anyone can choose to bail out. Becoming a prisoner of war is still better than being shot to pieces, but his men refuse. Eyes fixed to the north, they fly past the Jever airfield, where German fighter ace Franz Stigler is about to start his engine. Just a day earlier, Stigler brings down two B-negative 17 seconds, and shooting down another one makes him eligible for the Knight's Cross. To Franz, though, the medal means more than just an award for being a killing machine. It means that there is sense behind his fighting, and that he has done his duty for his countrymen. He has seen firsthand what the bombers have done to the cities of Hamburg and Bremen, reducing them to rubble. But his fight is not about hatred or revenge, it is about duty and survival. Franz learned his craft during his service in the Libyan desert, where he flew with the Knights of the Desert and their star fighter ace Hans Joachim Marseille. He lost a brother to the war and witnessed the destruction of the Afrika Korps, and then was caught up in a desperate fight for Sicily under Adolf Hitler. He would earn his Knight's Cross by shooting down the flying fortress that appears now before him. He begins his attack run, but with his finger on the trigger and the enemy rear in his sight, he does not shoot. Something stops him. The lack of fire from the other plane makes him curious, and it is then that he spots the damage the enemy plane has taken. He flies closer and pulls up alongside, stunned by the condition of the plane and how it is still able to fly. The only gun not destroyed is the ball turret below, but it can't elevate its guns high enough to harm him. Franz knows that a few shots are enough to bring this aircraft down, but there's little glory in shooting down a bunch of helpless men, even though their bombs have quite likely just killed his countrymen. He draws up right by the pub's cockpit. Charlie's eyes are still fixed on the horizon, thinking of the flat guns of the Atlantic Wall, when suddenly a Messerschmitt appears right next to him. Franz waves at Charlie and points down, signaling that they should land, knowing that they stand no chance against the Atlantic Wall. Charlie shakes his head, and Franz knows they are dead men unless he helps them. He stays with them as they fly towards the Atlantic Wall. The experienced German spotters on the ground will easily recognize one of their own, so as they fly over across the AA guns, not a single one opens fire. Franz will wonder his whole life what the spotters think of that scene in the sky that day. As they pass unscathed, Charlie cannot understand or see what Franz has done to help him, until Franz Stigler salutes, then banks away. Only as then does Charlie understand. No one can know. Ye Old Pub makes it back to England, barely. And it is a small miracle that it manages a landing. The commanding officer is about to award them medals for their service, but High Command gets wind of the story and is furious. No one can know. The mission never happened. Everything is swept under the rug. Franz lands safely near Bremen but can tell no one about what he has just done. This could get him court-martialed. It could get him killed. The story disappeared into the mists of time, but according to the book A Higher Call, in 1985, Boeing invited old fighter pilots to the 50th anniversary of the B-17, whose first flights were back in 1935. By then, Franz Stigler was living in Vancouver, Canada. He was in attendance as the only German pilot and was interviewed by a local television station to which he told his story. That same year, Charlie wrote to the old German flying ace Adolf Galland in the German magazine Jagerblatt to find out who his German savior was. It took until 1990 until they found each other and met in person after letters and phone calls. Their startling story gained worldwide attention. Even after that, even so long after the war, Franz would receive calls from Germany calling him a traitor, while some Canadian neighbors shunned him as a Nazi. Franz always responded, they would never understand.